Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pits of Motorcast. It's your host, Dave. I got online special guest, Ronny Young, driver of the Blue Max Nostalgia Funny Car. How's it going, Ronny?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm good. So you ran Funny Car Chaos up in Denton. How'd you do up there that weekend?
We did okay. It was our first time out this year. Seemed like we had a lot of little problems. You thought we'd never been to a racetrack in our life, but it came out okay. We didn't hurt a lot of parts, but we did break a few little things that normally doesn't happen. But the weather was cold there, and it was kind of tough on everybody, and we just fell in line with that. And we lost first round, but ran respectable, and like I said, come home without major damage. So we'll go to Mocan and see how things work there.
Yeah, it looked pretty windy out there.
It was windy. It was very cold, and it was kind of a miserable time. But they had a good crowd, and we enjoyed it. And I'd rather not race when it's that cold because cars don't like it, the oil don't like it, and just the way it is. But sometimes it's not always perfect.
Yeah, it's a little too cold, huh? Because some people say, "Oh, the cool weather makes for fast run times."
And that is true, especially in an alcohol car. And I ran alcohol cars for years, and they love it. The blowers are cold, and man, things are good. Nitro cars, it's okay on them, but not like it is an alcohol car.
Yeah, like the blower pro mods.
Yeah, they love that cold weather, but it affects us and the track, and of course the crowd's not crazy about sitting up in the bleachers with it, wind blowing 30 miles an hour.
Yeah. So how many Funny Car Chaos events are you gonna be doing this year?
Well, it kind of depends. I run my own business here, building race car trailers and government trailers and stuff, and sometimes it's a little tough to get away. Our business is kind of demanding them. They expect stuff now, just like anybody does, and we're going to run as many as we possibly can. Probably run a few heritage deals too, at the same time, but we'll run as many as we can.
Now, I'm sure you would love to run all six of them.
And we would, and we may. It really depends. Sometimes we're getting kind of a crunch on the trailers, and sometimes you just got to pay attention to business too. That's what makes the funny car go.
Yeah.
But we'll do the best we can, and we'll probably try to run them all.
So, do you have any sponsors, or is the sponsor your own pocket?
Well, most of it's out of our own pocket. We have some small stuff like Emily Oil and Champion Spark Plugs, and and a few guys that help here and there. And obviously, on the car, I have a lot of sponsors' names on it that was from back in the day.
Right.
We've had clearance to use those. So.
Yeah, the Raymond Beetle days.
Yep. Missed those days too.
So, what made you choose to drive a Raymond Beetle Blue Max? That was you your favorite back then?
Yeah, I worked. Obviously had my own cars, alcohol cars, and then back in the '80s, and won a couple of national events back then, Sports Nationals and the Cajun Nationals, and then I went to work for a couple of guys that had fuel funny cars and California guys, and we were actually in Phoenix one time running with a guy named Eric Reed and got out running first round, and Raymond come over and said something about, hey, can you help us out today? And I did, and he said, when we get back home, come over and see about going to work for me, and I did, and worked there for 5 years, and that's actually how I came into the trailer business too, because he owned Chaparral Trailers at the time, and when Blue Max Inc. went under, it took Chaparral with it, and so I started this business in 1990, I believe. So.
All right, so now let's go back in time, Ronny. How did you get into drag racing in the first place?
How? Well, in high school, just like anybody else, street racing, and then as I graduated high school, then went to the Army for a few years, and then come back, and then me and a friend named Terry Darby, we built a '68 Camaro and ran Green Valley Raceway over in Fort Worth, until it closed, and then we built a little Pro Stocker, which in the day was way different than it is now, and a little Vega, a little '73 Vega, and we ran Division 4 and a few national events back then, and as it got too tough to participate in, I sold that car and then built an alcohol funny car. And we always had a name of Shockwave on the side of it, and ran probably 7-8 years in that, and did fairly well. There was a circuit called the All-American Funny Car Circuit, and that was very successful. We ran that circuit with a lot of good friends, and still race with some of them, to tell you the truth. So we're just all older, and that's just the way it is, But that's how I got in drag racing, So.
Now, speaking of Shockwave, I want to say rest in peace to Les Shockley, who drove the Shockwave jet.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
I actually sold that Shockwave car to a boy named Bobby Marriott, which he still runs it as a fuel altered, So, and of all things, I drove that car maybe about a year ago at Denton, at a fuel altered show, and we actually won that night. I don't know how we did, but we did, So that was pretty cool, to be honest with you.
So after the 7-8 years with the Shockwave alcohol funny car, what'd you go into after that?
Well, I retired for a little bit and started this trailer business, and then I went to work for a guy named Eric Reed, who had a fuel funny car in California, and traveled around to most of the national events, and always usually qualified, maybe go around here and there, and like I said, then Beetle came by and at Phoenix. This was probably middle '80s, and I went to work for him. And luckily, we became really good friends. And I drove the Blue Max in '87, '88, '89, mostly match racing. He was more into NASCAR then, but he still ran the funny car because it was a good money producer, and I drove it. He had kind of lost interest in it, and in '90, he sold it all to Flash Gordon Mineo, and so like I said, I just worked for other guys then, and I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something, me and him and Dale Emery went to Bakersfield to the nostalgia race out there, and I just thought it was cool, to see all the nostalgia cars, the War Eagle and Quarter Pounder, and just all the guys I remember, the Pfluger and Geiger car, and just everybody I remembered. I said something to Beetle about maybe putting that car back, one of the cars back together, and he kind of agreed, and I bought the original old semi back, the Chaparral semi that he had built, and we still use that trailer to this day. We have a newer tractor, but we use that trailer. Raymond really got into it for a while. He traveled with us and went, if we were in Maple Grove or California or wherever we were racing, he liked to go, especially if he knew Snake or some of them guys were going to be there, So he hung out, and I really missed those days when he traveled with us. They were good times,
Yeah. So you're still driving the same funny car now?
Well, I'd bought one of the original low cars back, and it was one of the Tony Caceres cars that we got a different body for, an Era body, and I asked Beetle which one he wanted to, reproduce, and he said the yellow and blue car, which at the time I wasn't the biggest fan of that car. It's a pretty car, and I still have it, and the more we raced that car, the better I liked it because it photographed well. It was a '78 version, and we did very well with it. And like I said, I still have it. And then I retired it, and ended up finding one of his other cars, one of the EXPs. We restored it. I never raced it much because of it being original. And I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I had a guy in St. Louis build a car for me, a new '81 car, the Plymouth Era the Dodge Horizon that Beetle always called the wonder car, that they did so well back during the early '80s, won several championships with it, and they just had a good streak with that car, and I've reproduced it now, and of course it's more modern than the first car I put back together, and bigger, more comfortable, and more safety, and it's a good car. That's the car we run now, but I still have, altogether, I have 3 of those cars, So.
So how many gallons is the fuel pump you're running in that funny car?
Well, I'll have to admit, in the Chaos, we're up to about 34 gallons, but to run the Heritage stuff, we have to stay down about 21 gallons. But in the Chaos, I mean, obviously it's run what you bring, and some of the guys are bringing some big stuff, so we've actually put a bigger blower on it and a bigger mag, bigger fuel pump. That's what we're kind of experimenting with now, bigger motors, bigger cubic inch motors, and that's what we're experimenting with now. And seems like it's going to work out okay. Hopefully it's not so hard on parts, and that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
And still run good, so.
Yeah, I was watching the live feed from Denton. I was seeing you had some bigger header flames coming out of there.
We do, and that's got to do with of all things, we run a cam in this thing. They call it the Dick LaHaye cam, and it's one that Bullet made for him. There's no telling how many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, and a lot of guys run that cam, and it produces flames, and obviously the fuel pump's way more volume, so. And I think the crowd likes that. I like it, to be honest with you. That's the way funny cars are supposed to be, so.
Yeah.
That's what I like about Chaos is, you can kind of do what you want, be safe, and it seems to be a good group of guys. And so far the tracks have been pretty good and safe, and it's just, right now, it's a good series to run. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it gives the older funny cars, the newer funny cars, the guys that just didn't have anywhere to race, to go. And
right.
As you can tell by the turnout, it's a pretty good deal right now for everybody. The crowds are good, and that's the whole key to the deal. If you don't have people watching you, you can't do it. So we enjoy going, seeing the people, the crowd. I mean, obviously a lot of them are friends, a lot of them are new people we meet. A lot of them are people that knew the Blue Max in the 70s, 80s, somewhere along the line, and that's a big key to us. Is that's the fun part, meeting those people, and they'll tell you stories that obviously we never heard, some of them, and some of them we do know, and they'll say, oh, my dad brought me here, or my uncle brought me, and I remember seeing it at Green Valley or Baton Rouge or wherever, and can I stand in the trailer door and take my picture I did when I was 6 years old, and that's the fun part of going, I'll be honest with you. So.
Yeah, that final for the A fields was pretty neat, seeing the Allen and Kevin with the header flames, man.
Yep, it was, and Kevin's a really good friend of mine, worked on my car for a long time, and talked to him this morning. They're headed to Houston for the national event and with a top fuel car, and it's great to see him come out with that car. I mean, it ran good, and they had a lot of trouble, but they sorted it out, and it was pretty impressive. I'd like to see him win it, but he'll get one out there sometime. And Ferris and them are good guys and good friends of ours, and most of the people out that come to the Chaos deal, I don't know them all. It's a lot of new guys, but it don't take long. Everybody kind of melts into a pot, and everybody's friends, and just like the fuel altered circuit is, and that's what becomes fun, and hopefully we'll be able to make most of the races, if not all. Some of them are a little tough, like Martin, Michigan up there, but to be honest with you, that's one of my favorite tracks. That's the most beautiful track I think I've ever been to, and I love going up there. It's just a long way, but a lot of times we'll make the effort to do it just because the crew, everybody, we really enjoy going there. It's just such a beautiful place,
Yeah, I told Kevin, I think if he didn't red light, I think he would have won.
Yep, I do too. Oh, he would have, he had it in the bag, but gosh, it happens to all of us, and that's just the way it is. And me and him's talked a dozen times since, and we never mention the red light. We just don't do it, So, he'll get it. He'll do good this weekend too. I know he will. In that top fuel car, So.
Yeah. Now you're talking about how people were telling you about memories of the Blue Max. That's like me. My dad started taking me to watch drag racing when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And then we see the Blue Max up at US 30 track ship in Maryville, Indiana. They shut that one down, and
Yep. Yep.
Then Great Lakes Dragway in Union Grove, Wisconsin. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we've been. Gosh, there's this. I don't know if there's anywhere that we haven't been with it, especially in the Beetle days. They used to run. Beetle would tell me the stories before I went to work there. I mean, I knew him, but I didn't, obviously travel with him or work for him back in the 80s and stuff. And because I had my own car, my alcohol card, and traveled with it. But Beetle would tell me back in the day they would run on Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, and they'd run 250 dates a year, and they could do it. And the people made a living back then. That's what they did, and I kind of jealous that I wasn't around during that time to take advantage of that situation, but I know it had to be a rough time too, racing that many times. But I'll tell you, he used to travel to the races with us, and we'd be in the airports, and man, he'd sit there and tell us stories about the Jungle Gym days and the stories I can't tell, some of them, but man, we would sit around just like little kids listening to those stories, and know someday when he's gone, those stories go with him, and that's sad, that happens, but that's just the way it is, but man, that it was good days listening to him tell those stories. It was very well worth it, I can tell you. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, have you ever been to Great Lakes Dragway?
Been to where?
Great Lakes Dragway in Wisconsin.
I have.
Were you the one who used to drive the Blue Axe when you against the jet car over there?
Oh, I've run a few jet cars, but I didn't run one there.
Yeah.
I've ran them down in Baton Rouge, in Michigan. I used to match race the Beatles car quite a bit, and I'd run Roland a lot, the Hawaiian, and up in Spokane and Michigan, Martin, Michigan, and a lot of different places, So.
Yeah, because they were bringing a Blue Max car in Great Lakes, I can't remember, maybe 15, 20 years ago, going against the jet car. I don't know who was driving the...
Mm-hmm. That's an experience running one, I can tell you. I mean, it's okay. I don't mind doing it. It's not my favorite deal in the world, but I don't mind doing it, The crowd loves it, I can tell you that, so...
Oh, yeah.
We can always leave on them and outrun them very easily to half track or something, but boy, from 8th mile on, boy, they come on like gangbusters, I'll tell you. So.
Yeah. Okay, so now, for you, what was the experience like for you for the first time driving a Nitro funny car?
Yeah, I remember, it was probably 84, 85. I'd ran alcohol cars, forever, and always dreamed about running a Nitro car. And of course, I worked with Beetle, and at the time, Richard Thorpe drove the funny car. We went several places with him, and run Indy and whatever, national events and whatever. It was sponsored by Kodiak back then. Beetle's car was, and I don't remember. Richard left for some reason, and I was at Beetle's shop, and he walked out in the shop one day, and he said, "Need to get you a helmet and go out to." I think it was Ennis. They're going to run on Monday and see if you can't get your license. Get your license and then head to Pomona for the World Finals. And I thought, boy, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I did. I went out there, and I can remember I was a nervous wreck, and I remember walking in the restroom right before I ran or whatever, and I said, "Okay, son, this is what you wanted, so you can't back up now," and we actually went out and ran very well. I mean, I think the car, and you got to remember, this is 87, something like that, and I think we ran a 540 at 289 or something like 541. And at the time, that was as fast as that car had ever ran. I think McEwen had ran a 541, and he ran it at he drove the Blue Max one time because of some shootout deal, and I runnered up to Kenny Bernstein out there at Ennis, and so we were the very first time we ran it. I mean, we ran as fast as that car had ever ran, and obviously we ran better and better, here and there. And I think in Pomona we ran a 5:17, 2:99 or something. Of course, we ran a quarter mile back then, and it was a blast. I mean, I'm very fortunate to be in the position I was then and now, and know Raymond and him being gracious enough to let me do it and have trust in me to do it. And gosh, we always stayed friends. I mean, like I said, I miss him, and he could sure get you in some spots. I'll give you that, but he was sure a character, and I miss him. I miss talking to him.
So now, besides Raymond being a big inspirational to you, what other drivers out there were inspirational to you back then?
Well, if you talk about fuel cars, I mean, of course, Dale Pulley, and Tom Hoover, and I actually still see those guys every now and then. I see Pulley at the Chaos; he's always there. He works on Nancy Matter's car, and if we're up north, if we run Cedar Falls or whatever up there, a lot of times Tom Hoover will come by and talk, and I mean, those guys were the guys I knew back then, and of course they were my heroes, Mike Burkhart, and Dale Emery, and a lot of the Blue Max guys. Of course, I became pretty close with them after I went to work there, and the sad part is there's only one left, and that's Waterbed Fred, and the rest of them are gone, so.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful that I had some time with them. I can tell you that, because they were my heroes growing up, and I always idolized them, and I'm glad I got a chance to work there and got to know them personally, and a lot of other people too, just because I worked there. Man, there were some good times. I could tell stories forever, so.
All right, so how many crew members do you have for the Blue Max, and who are your crew members?
We do about 5 or 6, goes with us. A guy named Rob Ragland and his wife that run a track in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and they're kind of key. My son-in-law is very key. Aaron Morrow, he actually drives a fuel altered for the guy that I used to be partners with forever in a Pro Stocker and an alcohol funny car, Terry Darby, and they do very well in the Bobby Marriott series, the fuel altered series, and so we got kind of a close group that we've had forever, and everybody travels well, does well. Everybody knows their job, and it just seems to work well. It does. My daughter works with us a lot, sells shirts, sells hats, any kind of memorabilia we have. She does a lot of online stuff, and kind of helps us get by, and racing a Nitro funny car.
Yeah.
There's nothing cheap about it, but I don't complain about it. I choose to do it, and that's the way it is, and I'm grateful every moment we do it, and get to do it,
All right, so now you said you're gonna try to run all the funny car cars if possible, and how many other events you're gonna try to run?
I think there's 6 more, I believe. The next one's in Mocan,
No, not the funny car chaos. I was saying you're gonna try to run all 6 of those, and what other events were you gonna try to run?
Oh, the heritage deals. We'll run a deal in I know for sure in Tulsa. They're having a heritage race there, NHRA, and we've always supported that track. I like that track. I like to race there. It'll be a quarter mile. I'll have to put my legal stuff back on to go, but that's okay, and this is the first year they're going to run the funny cars. They've run Top Fuel Nostalgia there for several years, but they're going to run the funny cars there this year, and we'll make an effort to go there for sure. So.
Now, did you go to the March meet this year?
No, I didn't. No, I've kind of haven't been to the California the last couple of 3 years for the simple reason we kind of like going to Michigan or some of the ones up north that we kind of enjoy up there, and we've just let them take the place of California, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's a trip to go out there. I mean, I love to go out there, but it's pretty expensive, and the time you fly everybody, and we've just kind of chose to do other races instead of that one, So.
All right, so what's the fastest ET you've had with the Blue Max?
This one here, we run a 573, 258, and I think we were in Martin, Michigan. I think I was running John Hale up there, and everybody, of course, everybody runs good, and that's why we like to go there. But that's the best we've ran with this car. So, and that's a quarter mile. In the eighth mile, I think we've run a 373. At 204, I believe is what we've run in the eighth mile. So that's about the best we've run.
So what's your preference, quarter mile or eighth mile?
I always thought it was quarter mile, but the older I get, I'm kind of enjoying the eighth mile. I'll be honest with you. It's easier on parts. Obviously, you're not running it quite so far down there. Not as much chance of fire or hurting itself, or that's a tough question. But I'm leaning toward eighth mile now. I'll be honest with you. So.
All right. So now, Ronny, after all these years of drag racing, what still keeps you passionate about drag racing?
Well, it's the people there. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I love being there. I like the people when I get there. I'm not real keen anymore on the working on them at home, and the traveling. Of course that's tough. The getting there and the getting back. I mean, it's a production. I mean, it is, but but once I get there, I mean, boy, I'm settled in. I'm at home there. I mean, that's the part I like. And I'm not the best people person in the world, but I sure like being around all the people. And talking to the fans and reminiscing, and listening to the stories they have. I mean, there's some good ones. I'll just be honest with you.
So what's your greatest memory of Raymond Beetle?
Oh gosh, I guess toward the end, right there, they had a memorial for him. Not memorial, but we put together one of the original cars, and they had a deal where he showed up, and a lot of other people too, and we had that car on display, right? I'm going to say maybe 6 or 8 months before he died or whatever, and that was a kick to be there, with that car on display. We were inside a building, and there was a lot of people there, Al Unser Jr. and Johnny Rutherford, and they were, it was showing how he was such an influence in motorsports is what my point is, and I really was proud to do that. Not that I did it all myself. The crew and my son-in-law and everybody put so much effort for it to put his original car together and have it on display. And all of his old crew flew in that night, or that day and night, and they were still alive then, all his crew and stuff. And so it was cool to have everybody together for one last time. And Waterbed Fred got up and talked and gave a speech and stuff, and some really cool stories, about Raymond and stuff. And I think that's one of my fondest memories of him right there toward the end, to be honest, So.
Oh, that must have been real touching for Raymond.
It was good. It was good. I think he enjoyed it. I do. I know he didn't feel well, but I think he really did enjoy it. And I know we all did. Like I said, everybody get together at one last time. You never know how much longer you'll be around, or they'll be around, or whatever. But to get them together at one time, was kind of tough because everybody's scattered out. But it happened. Man, it was cool. It was a fun time. So.
Yeah. So Ronny, do you have any pre-race rituals or superstitions?
I don't. Not a lot. I really don't. I think I did it one time, back in the alcohol days and stuff. I had a certain shirt that I always thought I needed to wear, and and I mean, maybe I need it back. I know I did well back then in those alcohol days, but right now I don't. I mean, I don't have anything that I wear, or I don't get in a certain way. I've raced funny cars so long, so many years that it's just like second nature. I'm so relaxed in a car. I'm never nervous. It just doesn't bother me. I've been through some bad things in a funny car, but knock on wood, they hadn't been bad enough to hurt me or deter me from doing it. Like I said, it's just second nature. I guess I'm dumb. I just don't know any better, I guess, you know. So, but man, I still love doing it. I don't think I'd want to drive a dragster. I think the fuel author deal is cool. I did drive one, but the funny car deal is just like I said. It's always been me. I don't know any different, you know. So when I quit, that's going to be the last thing I drive, you know. So.
All right, now, what goes into preparation to get the funny car ready for a weekend of drag racing?
Well, obviously it's tough, you know. Obviously, you know, we have a shop here at my trailer shop, and you know, of course, we go through everything. We go through the heads, you know. We go through the bottom end, you know. We pull all the pistons out, rods, check everything there is. Pull a clutch out every time, measure everything in the clutch. You know, normally we'll pull a rear end out of it, check the ring and pinion. I mean, we pretty much disassemble it, you know, and make sure everything's fresh when we get there. Not that it always pays off, but that's our ritual anyhow, you know. And of course, getting there, you know, I mean, it's a production to run a funny car. It just is, you know, and you know, mixing the fuel, making sure, you know, you got oil in it, blower's got oil in it, everything's got, you know, you just, there's a checklist you kind of go through maybe mentally, but, you know, and we asked each other as we're getting ready to crank, okay, is, you know, everything, you know, we kind of ask each other knowing, you know, and then make sure it's got oil pressure right before it cranks, you know, and here we go and hope everything's good, you know, and then we kind of make a decision before we go up on the track, whether how much percentage, you know, how much mag to put in it, you know, just the things we can control, we try to control. And, you know, before we run it, actually, you know, we'll kind of check there and see which head gasket. We probably got 25 sets of head gaskets, different thicknesses, and we'll say, okay, we need a 90 or a 100 or a 60 or whatever. We, you know, change compression or whatever, and that's kind of the ritual we have. We're not quite as bad as a double A funny car, you know, but we do, you know, there's quite a bit of work involved, you know, and of course when we run it, we come back and we'll leak it first thing, you know, make sure, you know, cylinders and you know, if a cylinder's hurt or something, we pull it apart, change rod, piston, whatever we got to do to get ready to go back up, you know. Hopefully it's not too extensive, and of course run the valves and do all that, and change oil again, you know, and check percentage and see what we're going to try to do this time, and set the clutch every time, you know, and every third or fourth run we have to put a clutch pack in it with floaters, and because we go through them, you know, just like anybody else does, you know, in a Nitro car.
All right, so now besides Michigan, do you have any other favorite tracks to race on?
Oh, we do. I mean, I like Tulsa. I do. You know, I've always liked Tulsa. I've raced there since the late '60s. It's different than it used to be in the '60s, but I've always enjoyed going there. I enjoy the people there. Todd Martin, the guy that owns the track, you know, we're friends, and I always enjoy going there. And we've been fairly successful there. And with the funny car, the fans like us to be there, so we like to be there. We're looking forward to it every year. And most years we have a race, and we kind of sponsor it, and we call it the Raymond Beadle Memorial Race at that particular track. And you know, we buy flags. It's got Raymond's picture and this, and whoever wins and runner up. And we try to do a lot of things, just kind of, you know, so we don't forget his memory or whatever, you know, and tell his family we're going to have it. Not that they come or whatever, but they appreciate us doing it, you know, and we get a kick out of it. I know he would too. I'll be honest with you. So, but there's several tracks. I enjoy Denton. I'll be honest. It's a little bit short, but sometimes that's my fault, you know, and but that's a good track, you know. I mean, I enjoy going there, you know. Ennis, I mean, I like going down there, you know, the Dallas track, but we don't have a lot of opportunity to do that, you know. But I've made a few passes at the national. Oh, you know, I mean, winning a couple of national events, like I said, I think in '83 I won the sports nationals down in Houston with my alcohol car. I was really, anytime you win a national win, you know, it's very satisfying. I mean, that was, Oh gosh, man, that was probably one of my best highlights. And then I think the very next year I won the Cajun Nationals. At the time it was in Baton Rouge, and they had a national event there. And believe it or not, I mean I can't believe it now, but they did. And of course Raymond and all of them raced down there, but I was in alcohol. Obviously they run Nitro, but winning that race, I mean, man, it was just those two deals were probably in drag racing is my highlights. I've won other races, division races and Division 4, and first one thing and another. But to win a national event, I mean, that's pretty prestigious. Especially in those days, there was a lot of alcohol funny cars. Not so much anymore. I mean, it's still hard to win one of them, but man, we went through a lot of cars. There was always 16-car fields back then, and we were proud to do that.
Yeah, that's what's cool about funny car cars. You could have the Nitro going against the alcohol guys.
That's it, and they're not at a disadvantage either. I mean, if anything, they're a little bit advantage, because they're so quick on the start line. They have a clutch, most of them, or trans brake or whatever. And of course, most of the fuel cars run, a Crowder glide just like the old days and stuff, and they're not as quick off the start line, so it's kind of an evening factor, and that's what's kind of cool about the chaos. I mean, you can have a AA car, or you can have a car with a big block Chevy in it, but I think the crowd still likes it, whatever it is, because of a car count for one thing. When you go to a race and there's 20, 25, 30 cars, I mean, that's pretty cool. Instead of going to a race that's got 3, that's what's cool about the funny car chaos,
Yeah. So, what would you consider to be the fondest memory of your drag racing career?
The what?
The fondest memory of your drag racing career.
Well, I'd say again the national events, and I'm almost going to say the Cajun Nationals down there because it was at a national event at the time when we won the Sports Nationals. It was only for alcohol cars and sportsman racers, and it was at the old Houston International track down there. Not that there was nothing wrong with it, but it was good, but I think winning the Cajuns was probably, because the national event crowd there was probably the best time, I think, so.
Well, what's been your most embarrassing moment on the track?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I've had a real bad one. Of course, I've had fires. I mean, Raymond's car. I've had them in Tom Akers' car, the Wizard car. I've had 2 bad ones in it, and I wouldn't say that was embarrassing other than just I was glad to get out unscathed, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, fires, that's not embarrassing.
No. I think probably last year at the Chaos race, I was at Denton, and we ran really well qualifying, and I missed the chutes going through the lights. I'd moved in a new car. I'd moved the chute levers, and I was late on the chutes, and I ran into the net, and I think that was probably as embarrassed as I've ever been, I'll be honest, so.
So now, for the people to follow the Blue Max car, the Facebook page keeps updated pretty good?
Say it again?
For people to follow the Blue Max car that are listening to the interview right now, the Blue Max Facebook page is a good way for them to follow?
Yeah, sure.
That gets pretty good updates?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So who runs that Facebook page?
It's BlueMaxRacing.com.
That's who runs the page?
My daughter does. Lacey Morrow.
Okay. Now, you don't have a website?
I do. It's Blue Max Racing, and it's got all of our nostalgia stuff for sale and stuff like that. She runs that site too. So BlueMaxRacing.com.
All right. So, let's see. Do you have any hobbies besides drag racing?
Well, believe it or not, I mean, I have a farm down in East Texas, about 250 acres, and between my daughter and my son and me, we have about 70 or 80 head of cattle down there. We raise cattle, and my son lives on one of the houses down there, and kind of oversees everything, you know, because I'm not able to go every weekend down there to see the cows, but that's kind of my other hobby, you know, is raising cattle, you know, and I know that was Raymond's too at the time. He was way more big time than I was, but I enjoy that. I mean, we go down and, you know, we have a place to stay there, a house on the property, and me and my wife, and I enjoy that. That I think right now that's probably my hobby, you know, besides racing. And, but between them two and this trailer company, I mean, it's all we can do to stay ahead of everything and try to keep everything functioning right, you know. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, like I said, my kids help me a lot, as does my son-in-law, and shoot, everything is going along fine, you know.
All right, I'm going to ask you a couple more fun questions, then we'll finish up. What's your favorite food to eat?
My favorite what?
What's your favorite food you like to eat?
I'm not hearing you very well for some reason.
What is your favorite food?
Food?
Yes, sir.
Oh, gosh. Hamburgers, French fries, that's me, you know. Old school, you know. I mean, I'm a junk food junkie. I mean, that's the way I was raised, you know, and especially being on the road all the time. But, man, when it comes right down to the end, I'm sure it's hamburgers and French fries. That'll probably get me one of these days, but that's okay, you know. I mean, a lot of other things could be worse, you know, but that's probably hamburgers, you know.
All right. What's your favorite beverage?
Oh, gosh. I hate to say this, but Diet Coke, but I've kind of laid off of them a little bit. I'm not a drinker for sure. You know, I don't mind having a beer every now and then, but not much, you know, and I just never was. You know, I mean, I was always so serious about racing that when I went to a race, that's what I went for. I didn't go to drink and party, and you know, you invested so much of your time, so much of your money that's what I was serious about. And I mean, I don't begrudge anybody that goes for any other reason, but that was just me. I was just serious about racing, and I had to pay attention, you know, and I had to do well when I was there, and that's just the way it is. And it's still that way. You know, I mean, I guess I'm going to go back to iced tea now. You know, I mean, that's the way it is. You know, so, but you know, that's just part of getting older too. You know.
Yeah. What's your favorite music?
Music, Southern rock. You know, anything anything Southern rock. You know, so we go on a cruise once a year on Southern rock cruises. You know, and I enjoy Leonard Skinner or 38 Special or golly, you know, I mean, Marshall Tucker, any of them guys. We see them guys a lot, you know, and I still go to their concerts and see them on cruises, and that's me, is Southern rock, you know. You know, and I like a lot of other music too, but I mean, if I have my choice, that's it. You know?
All right, Ronny. So, you have any final words or thank yous you want to do?
Man, you know, just thanks for all the fans and stuff. I mean, man, like I said, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't go, you know. But you know, if I ever give it up, and I'm sure I'll have to someday, but that's the part I'm going to miss the worst is the fans and the people we've met along the way. I mean, you consider I've done this since '68, you know, and man, we've met a lot of good people. A lot of people are not here anymore, but man, that's my favorite part. I mean, it is the people we see at the races. I mean, that's just the way it is. So.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you very much for your time, Ronny.
Okay, I appreciate it.